and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. It's Hannah here with you today, and if you can hear the giggle in my tone, it's because I'm here with Ashley and she's pulling faces at me yet again.
I'm not. Grow up.
Oh, yeah, as if. The first time I tried to do the intro, she just made some weird noise. I'm not even sure how I'd describe the noise you made.
Just
Don't deny it.
Just don't listen to it. Like, this is gaslighting Hannah.
Yeah, sure. It is the end of Ash's week, if you're wondering why we are sounding so bonkers. But silliness aside, today we want to talk to you about a topic we both love, because it's our bread and butter, really, isn't it, Ash? We want to talk to you all about marketing campaigns for L&D. Now,
Yes.
I think we need to start this podcast with like an elephant in the room kind of conversation, because L&D love the word campaign. They love it. Everything's a campaign. And I've kind of realised, especially over, say, the last 24 months, I don't think L&D know what a campaign is. Do you
No.
agree?
I mean, I'm trying to wrap my brain around why you said 24 months instead of 2 years, but that aside,
I was going to go for 18 months, and then I was like, it's been a bit longer than a year and a half. So then 24 came out. I don't know.
I was like, yeah, fair enough, it's fine. I'm just here to take the piss out of you, sorry. So campaigns are, to my mind, it shouldn't be kind of a subjective opinion about what a campaign is. There is a very clear rule/agreement in marketing, even if it's tacit, about what a campaign is. And so a campaign is a consistent cadence, ideally multi-channel, that is a prolonged period of time. So we're talking at least 2 to 3 months, right? That it can't be a week. Learning at work week is
not
a campaign, but not a campaign. You know, it's like a micro campaign or a mini campaign or something like that. But I think, to my mind, even length of time aside, it's really about that multi-channel approach and consistency. So, you know, if you can achieve that in a week, well done, but you're not going to stick in people's minds after a week.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. So that's why we have to do it over a period of time.
And I think what's also really important to note is, absolutely, yes, you can have a learning campaign that doesn't actually have marketing in it. But even what L&D call a campaign, it typically isn't. So at Learning Tech this year, I heard this guy, Matt Kesby, talk about learning campaigns. And I was like,
Yeah.
I bet that this is another twist on the marketing campaign. And what is this? And actually, it had nothing to do with marketing. But it was exactly what you just said, Ash. It was repeated, multi-channel, multi-modality way of teaching somebody about one topic, spreading it out over a period of time, that spaced repetition piece. And we said it way back when on the podcast, I'm talking it was probably within the first 10 episodes, that there are so many similarities between really good learning practices and really good marketing practices. And spaced repetition is a big one, of actually spreading that message out, making sure you're getting in front of the right people at the right time. And that's why I think there's so much confusion in L&D, because for ever so long, marketing campaigns have been, we've got an email when we put a poster up in the kitchen, and that's our campaign. And it's just not.
I think the truth is, really, when you boil L&D and marketing down, we're trying to do the same thing, right? So we're trying to impact the brain, influence the brain, and change behavior, right? So ultimately, the desire of getting someone to choose product X over product Y is a change in behavior, just as much as we want old Bob over there to start using Gen AI within his workflows. Should have said Stephen, rather than...
We love Steve.
rather than his way of doing things at the moment. So it's the same approach. We're trying to change behaviors and positively influence what people do. And in order to do that, we need to understand motivators and pain points, because that's how we get them to change behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also I've had the conversation, I think you mentioned it on this series of the podcast, but I've definitely had it with a few clients since, saying like, actually the word campaign makes them feel a bit icky because of like political campaigns. But actually political campaigns are a really, really good example of what a campaign is. So if you're looking at the political campaigns that go out, obviously I've only ever experienced it in the UK, but I've seen stuff across the pond and things like that. If you think about that, and mul- how many times they're communicating the same message over and over again and getting to people in different ways. And then you're comparing that to what you're calling a campaign when you're launching your new LMS or your new products or you're trying to boost engagement. You can see where you're going wrong quite easily, can't you? Of we're just not doing enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, if you look particularly on like the political campaign piece, they do them exceptionally well. If you think about a presidential election, they always have a tagline. You know, Trump's got MAGA, and I actually can't remember what Obama's was.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. See, you remember it.
It's also an example of the rule of three that I give in the masterclass. So.
Aha. And then over here, we've had the campaign where, again, the Tories were, if you vote for us, you can spend that 350 million a week that we could spend on the NHS that they put on the bus and all of that. So like everybody has their hooks and their anchors and their things that are helping to define what this all means. But you know, the American stuff's more interesting than the UK because the UK is highly limited in terms of how much people can spend, whereas there's not that, as far as I'm aware, in the States. So they can go a bit more gung-ho and heavy on things, whereas you can't so much here.
Yeah. But with that in mind, it's almost like the British political campaigns are almost a better case study for us because they haven't got the budgets. And we've got budgets in L&D typically to spend loads of money on marketing. So those catchy lines, like the one, and whenever I mention it to people, I can see like the PTSD coming back in people's faces. But the COVID campaign about hand-to-face space. I know for a fact I screamed that at my brother when he tried to hug me for the first time post-COVID. Like, it just became part of, like, our vernacular. It became part of, like, our lives because it was a blooming good tagline. Hated it.
See it,
hated
say it, sort of is another one.
Yeah, see it, say it. So it, like, and I always tell people to check when they're on the train of people mouthing that along. And we went to London on Monday and I literally looked around the train and there was at least 10 people that were like, see it, say it, sorted, along with, like, the tannoid. Like, these things work incredibly well and they're not things that cost a ton.
No, and they're not fanciful either. You know, I think especially so, like we're in the process of building out a new product, right? And we've done a whole strategy and whatnot to sit around that. And the tagline is important because it's what links everything together. It's I hate the term North Star, but it's your source of truth. It's the one thing that kind of should link everything together so that when you're speaking to your different customer profiles and you're adjusting your messaging according to those personas, that source of truth still sits and weaves within all of that, even though it's maybe adapted and adjusted depending on those different audiences. The key for me is multi-channel and consistency. So, for example, campaigns-wise, I hear often we don't have many channels in L&D, and it's something we've discussed before. Like, but cool, like, you know, we have a lot of channels at our disposal, but do we use them? Like, sometimes again, having a very finite choice of where you can be forces innovation within those difficult spaces. We're not able to do social media marketing in the truest sense of the word as internal learning professionals, but we can do really great things with the channels that we do have and be a bit more creative and make sure that we're consistently using those channels as well to the full extent where we're not being a pain in the butt and annoying, but being visible, being present, creating object permanence in someone's mind so that you're there, you know, and we've done it with the pineapples.
Yeah,
people see
absolutely.
the pineapples and they think, oh, mass, you know, and that's not an accident.
Yeah, and it grabs attention. I literally spoke to somebody today that found us on LinkedIn and was like, well, I saw all the bright colours and then I looked at your website and it was even brighter and I thought I must speak to these people. And it's because we're in a sea of sameness. If everybody had bright, colourful, crazy brands like us, our brand wouldn't be distinctive and it wouldn't grab attention the way it does. And that's what we talk a lot about with our clients when we're doing campaigns. It's like, what's the differentiator of your learning brand? What's going to help you stand out among that sea of sameness? If you're using the same templates and the same everything that the rest of the company is using to put out messages, nobody's going to read them. Like, you will get banner blindness. They will just literally ignore them. And from what you said there about, like, we don't have many channels in L&D, we do have a damn sight more than we give ourselves credit for. And I always think back to that interview you did
Caroline
with
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, of L'Oreal. Like, what does she have? Like 18 or something?
Simpatico. I believe it was 22.
There you go. Like, and a lot of those were people and how we can leverage people.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think sometimes when we think of marketing campaigns in L&D, we're like, right, what cool things can we do? What can we borrow from TikTok? What can we borrow from, like, you know, billboard adverts and guerrilla marketing and things like that? Actually, let's sometimes strip that back a bit. Are we using the channels in the most effective way? Or are we just sending managers a really boring email saying, hey, can you share this with your team? That's not using managers as a channel. So I think when it comes to marketing for L&D campaigns as well, we really need to think about effective use of the channels rather than just the scattergun approach of we have put a message out on every single channel we can think of.
Can I also just add as well? So, like, I've been talking with a learning technologies or learning solutions vendor about maybe helping them with some of their marketing, right? So we tend to work with L&D, but sometimes we do these bigger, like, more strategic projects with vendors. They don't really have an audience at the moment. They've really built their business primarily around word of mouth and referrals and things like that. So they have quite a good reputation, but they have no audience, which is kind of where L&D is, right? There's lots of people that they know they want to reach, but that audience isn't connected and isn't engaged. So what I've said to them, and the same thing that I would say to L&D, is get your foundations in place first. And before you start doing some big ballsy campaign, make sure that the journeys that you're setting up are right. Make sure your product's right. Like, go back to the other stages of the people impact loop, because if you don't do those things, then you're just going to amplify silence. You're going to just go into the void. And we want to avoid the void, right? So that's another tagline, avoid the void. It's written on a notebook that I have next to my desk. I've been meaning to tell you that one.
Is it actually? I love that.
Yeah.
I thought you just came up with it there and then. I was giving you loads of credit for that, Ash.
No, it's next to make moments matter and marketing in a matter of clicks and all the campaign in the box stuff.
Fair.
When I wrote that down for that client, I thought, I like that. I'm going to keep it. I think there is a reason for the order of events here. And whilst the big shiny campaigns that look really great are quite alluring, much as the new LXP or the new bit of technology, AI, avatars, blah blah blah, they all look really cool and like, we got to get involved in that. Don't just follow the hype until you've got other things in place first, because if you don't, you're just gonna ruin it for yourself. You're gonna break that trust even more. We need to understand our audiences. We need to understand the business. We need to have really good learning products that are aligned to those things, that are also modern enough that they're not going to disappoint from a UX and a UI perspective as well. If we haven't got that in place, the campaign becomes redundant and it just becomes a costly exercise in time, resource, and budget, because we are going to make a bit of noise and then it's just going to flop back down. So
I can't remember if it was on this series or the last series of the pod, but also we spoke about this then of actually if you launch a marketing campaign and you haven't done the first half or the majority of the people impact loop, you're just going to break trust. You're going to make it worse, because you might create a really great marketing campaign. You could get like the best of the best marketing agency in to do your campaign for your learning. And then when the person...
that would be mass, by the way.
Obviously. But like when...
Rude.
I was actually thinking like John Lewis Christmas ad kind of budgets.
If you want to bring your John Lewis Christmas ad here, we will help you guys.
But my point is, you could have the best of the best of the best of the best. If they land and it's a terrible experience, it don't matter how good that campaign is.
Nope.
They're not going to come back again. You're going to ruin their trust. Actually, they'll dislike you even more than they already did. If they didn't have an opinion of you, they've got a bad one. If they had a good opinion of you, that's now gone out the window. You have to make sure you've got that before stuff, right? It doesn't matter how great the marketing is. You need to be marketing a good product.
It's the quadrant that we've talked about in terms of product market fit, right? So we need a good product and we need good marketing. If we have bad marketing and a good product, the product won't go anywhere. People won't use it, which is what a lot of L&D departments are in. They've got good stuff, but nobody's interacting with it because the marketing isn't really holding up its end of the bargain. The converse of that is, people bring us in and get really high-grade marketing campaigns, but the learning content and the learning experiences that sit underneath that aren't quite hitting the mark. And so again, the campaign builds buzz and activity, but it cannot be sustained beyond the limitations of the product. So you need both to be working in tandem well, because otherwise, like, one just cannot exist without the other. That's like, failure is in your future if it isn't.
And when we were talking at the start of this podcast, you were saying about the length of time and that being a big hook with the campaign, like a big identifying factor of like, it's more than a week. Learning at Work Week is not a full campaign. Obviously, you said at least 2 or 3 months. We say 3 to 6 months is a sweet spot for L&D because it's not too long, but it's enough time to actually change behaviours and get your message through. I think something that a lot of L&D teams overlook as well is the pre-launch and the post-launch, and why that's so important. Again, I literally spoke to somebody this morning who said, oh, we launched a new platform, there was loads of buzz, and within 2 weeks it had fallen off a cliff and nobody was accessing it anymore. I thought, because you didn't do a proper campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really important point for people to note as well. When you're designing a campaign, whether it's for a product launch, whether it's for a re-engagement campaign, whatever it is, it needs to be consistent and ongoing for a long amount of time. If you're launching a product, launching a new platform, anything like that, yes, that should be a day with a big star on it in your plan, but you should have marketing leading up to it and marketing going on for a foreseeable amount of time afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise, it just falls off a cliff. Because what's going to sustain it? I think, again, we have this really strong mindset. I was saying this in the IDIODC session I did yesterday.
I never know if you've said all the right letters with that one.
IDIODC, Instructional Designers in Offices Drinking Coffee. That's what it stands for.
Oh, I like it. I never knew that. You learn something new every day.
Just sounds like you're having a stroke if you say it fast. IDIODC. E-I-E-I-O. So
they're going to love you
I was
for
saying,
that.
They're nice. They're nice folks. I enjoy chatting with them. So I think the thing for me is we have a very odd mindset in L&D, which is, well, I've told them about it, so now they know. Mm-hmm. And like, it's like, that's enough. And so, that example where they've done some work and have gotten some traction with the audience, unless you sustain that traction, you're going to go back to a standing start. And then getting out of that inertia, that standing start, is the hardest bit of all. Building momentum. Once you have momentum, it's easier to roll and run. But
I think so much of it comes back to the fact that our audiences are human beings. They're not robots. They don't have something that can just go, oh, yep, I will check that on next Wednesday and I will remember to do it. Like, an example from the wild is I saw a beautiful dress. It was on a Facebook
From the wild.
From the wild. But I saw a beautiful dress, honestly. I fell in love with it. Didn't take a screenshot of it. Didn't look on the website. Nothing. Can I find that dress now? No. And I really blooming want to. So sometimes you just need to keep reminding people of things because we are human beings. We might misplace the link. We might forget about it. Like, it's not for a want of them not wanting to. We have to remind people. They could want to do something really, really badly. If you're not reminding them, the chances are they're going to forget. We all forget everything. Like, we're a nightmare, aren't we, Ash? We forget stuff mid-conversation. We're talking about, like, we're human beings. You have to keep reminding people of stuff. That doesn't mean you're bombarding them. And I get that question a lot, especially in the masterclass of like, oh, but surely I'm just going to get really annoying then. And people will just get really annoyed that they've seen the same message so many times. And that's not how it works either.
Well, no, because you're not just sending the same stuff out every time, I hope. And you're using different channels and hopefully different medias as well, so that you're changing you're not changing the message, but you're changing the content. Therefore, there's variation within that all the time. Yeah. Imagine if we just did a campaign of 50 assets, but it was like, like 10 of the same email, but you just send it like once a week. No, you send 5 different emails across a 6-week period, each kind of trying to achieve the same objective, but different tactics. Some are short and catchy and really to the point, and other ones a bit more visual, like so on and so forth.
Different what's in it for me's as well, like, because different people will react to different things. So it could be the same product solving 2 different problems. So hone in on the different problems. Like, there's so many ways that we can disseminate our message. You're not literally sending out. And again, I think it comes back to that legacy mindset that a campaign is, there's a new course in the LMS. Send.
Oh, but that, yes.
And if you send that 20 times, that will really annoy people.
Well, they just ignore it.
Yeah.
You know, I like everybody that we ever speak to, just, I don't read those emails. I don't, you know, they go in the bucket of compliance. Like, I pay very little attention to it. I do what I have to do when I'm told I have to do it, and that's pretty much the end of it. So, you know, interestingly, when you said it's not through a lack of want, I think there are two very distinctly different types of employee when we talk about this. And I say that confidently based on the back of our research and the discovery that we have done over the past 6 years. And one of the big things for me is there are some people that don't want to learn. They are quite, not obstinate, but they're not interested. They're not bothered. It's not on their radar. It's not on their agenda. They've got other priorities. And those people, we really do need to think about the what's in it for me and persuasion and influence, because we are asking for a change in mindset and behavior from those people. The other camp of people is those that maybe do want to progress and learn, and therefore our job is a little bit more around signposting and benefits rather than pain points, right? Because again, they already have that mindset, they have that attitude. So how do we lean into that? You know, you want to learn, here's how you do it, rather than here's why you should, right?
Yeah.
Like, that message is really different.
I also think there's a third group, and it's people that have the inclination to learn, but they don't want the progression, because so much of L&D or corporate learning in any guise is do this and you will progress in your career. And actually some people are just like, actually, I'm really happy. Like, I always use my brother as an example. He managed people, I think, for about 6 months before he turned around to his boss and was like, yeah, this is not for me. He is the polar opposite of me, if anyone's wondering. He's very shy, very quiet. He is a programmer. And he was just like, this is not for me. I'm so happy doing my job. I love what I do. But that progression in the traditional sense of going up to being a line manager and then being a team leader and all that was not for him. So in his mind, he didn't need to do learning because all of the learning was attached to that career progression piece that he weren't interested in. When actually that skills development piece to keep you really fresh and current in your job was actually still really important.
But again, all this would come out in the research that you do if you do it, right?
Exactly.
So like we're talking confidently in hypotheticals, really, because it is hypothetical, but it's based in a lot of fact and a lot of data. You know, the truth of the matter is, in many organizations, it's just not a priority. And unfortunately, that's being reflected in the market changes that we're seeing, where, you know, just someone I spoke to today was telling me that they're seeing a lot of L&D teams go from really quite large to just being to like 1 to 3 people. Yeah. So still have maybe a similar budget, outsourcing a lot, but removing a significant volume of headcount. And I see that. I see the open to work banners. I see the restructuring messages on LinkedIn. We see it in the strangeness of the industry at the moment. So we need to understand all of that a little bit more as learning professionals. What's the culture of the organization? You know, I say it all the time. M&A is a massive thing, and if you're going through that, then you need to talk to people, because if there is 2 different businesses cultures trying to come together, I've been in mishandled organizations that don't do change management well. You're assured nothing will change, and surely as the sun comes up, 6 months go down the line and everything's different. So we have to understand our people in order to build messages that are going to resonate from a campaign perspective. Yeah. So, you know, a campaign for me is not just sending, you know, again, a communications cadence lacks that depth, right? We're going to send some emails, drip emails, right? Not really a campaign. It's a consistent messaging. You could even do it over a period of time, but it lacks that substance and that strategic layer that I think is really what enriches a campaign and makes it a campaign. It's based in all that audience insights. It's got those taglines. You know, ideally in a dream world, we'd have a visual ident for every campaign that we do, but that's not. Rarely is it possible. Yeah. Can you actually think of a single client that we've been able to have a different visual ident for the campaign? I can't think of a.
Very loosely, one of them, but it's so loose that I wouldn't give them a shout out on the podcast because it still very much looked like their brand. It wasn't. It didn't stand out enough. In my opinion. But when we're thinking about the world that we're living in right now, like it is, like we've said, we see the open for work banners. I've had numerous personal messages of people saying to me, like, I'm leaving my role, I've been made redundant, all these things. For those that are still grafting away and trying to do this, and they're in organisations that might be having big restructurings, might be going through an M&A, might be on a budget freeze and all of this stuff, I know a lot of people that I've spoken to are really reluctant then to run campaigns and to do any marketing because they're scared of almost saying the wrong thing, or maybe that's not a priority for the business. How do we handle that when it comes to marketing for learning campaigns? How do we keep that momentum going when actually maybe the business is a bit icky at the moment, for want of a better word?
I mean, what's the alternative? Do we just disappear into the ether? Because the truth of the matter is, things that aren't kept front of mind are forgotten. You've already said that. So if we're not being present in the organization through marketing, then we become invisible. And then it's easier to cull us. It's easier to get rid or trim the fat, or whatever expression you want to use for that. I think even if it isn't massively strategic, huge campaigns, you still need to be communicating with your people. They still deserve to learn and upskill. They still, your learning deserves to be seen. Yeah. So, I don't know why, just because there's a significant amount of change, why we still wouldn't want to engage those audiences, because that's a resource that's there that the business is spending money on. It may as well be getting used. And again, absolutely. I think the one thing you have to consider in those contexts where there is a lot of change in the organization, again, you must do the research, but you also need to understand how much noise is already coming from the business. So if there's like a buttload of emails all the time, then maybe you avoid that channel for a bit because it's saturated and it's noisy. Can you activate your managers and have them be the ones who are really helping encourage this? Is it coming to, performance time, performance management, one-to-ones and yearly reviews and things like that? Can you activate your managers around that? Can we link, them with improving performance through the learning that we offer? It doesn't have to always be just send out a flurry of emails. That channel is busy. You can still cut through, don't get me wrong. You can. And it is, in my opinion, still one of the more effective channels that we've got as marketers, especially these days with the world that we're in. So, it's up to us to optimize the best we can with those emails and also consider how we best reach those audiences when certain channels are particularly flooded.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that we get out of the L&D silo and understand what's going on in the rest of the business so that our messages are landing. So literally just a few months ago, I think it was at the beginning of the year. This year has flown by. But I was working with a client that we had a campaign. It was ready to go. We were about 3 weeks off. And we did have a few campaigns for them, so it was okay. They had a massive restructure. And the campaign was all about, like, it really bringing your growth and the business growth together. And it was just the worst time for that message. So we had to go, right, no, we're pausing it. We're going to switch to one of our other campaigns, which was still absolutely in line with business and all of that, but less overt. And we delayed it for 3 weeks while the announcements were going out and big changes were happening and people were feeling really unsettled. We pushed it back 3 weeks and we led with a message that was much more about personal development and, like, essentially you can take this skill with you wherever you go. Because we had that context of the wider business, because we understood our audience so well, we kind of predicted how they'd react to the announcements that were going to come out. And therefore, we could then launch a campaign at the right time with the message that was actually going to resonate with them at that moment in time, rather than actually putting something out that would have been really ill-timed and really poorly received.
Absolutely.
That's why we make sure that we're partnering with the rest of the business and we know what's going on, not just, well, L&D's fine, so let's keep pushing everything out. Like, you have to know what's going on in the business.
Yeah, and you'll make enemies with internal comms if you don't as well. Like, if they see that you're sending stuff and it's interfering with, they rule supreme. Yeah. And just accept that hierarchy. It is what it is. Exactly. But if you're not aware of what they've got planned, then you can't even be seen to be considering that, can you? So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't do anything because they're doing a lot. It just, at least have those conversations and have a bit more mindfulness as well about how much people are going to receive as a consequence of that.
Yeah.
getting buy-in earlier on is the most important thing there. And we always try to do that in our projects, don't we? Like get internal comms and brand on board early doors, because then they're much more willing to engage, I think.
And I think that, like, for us with that 3-week delay, don't get me wrong, my client was like, but we're ready to go. We want to put it out now. That 3 weeks had absolutely no impact on the campaign, had no impact on launch dates, but actually had a massive impact with internal comms respect for us. And they're wanting to help us because we so willingly said, okay, we're going to delay it by 3 weeks and we're going to tweak the messaging so it's a bit more palatable. And they were just so happy with us that actually then we got more support from them, because we've built an actual relationship, not just, yeah, we're telling you this because we're going to do it anyway. So I think when you're launching campaigns in a business as well, you need to actually build those relationships. We spoke a lot about relationship building on the pod over the years, but I actually think in the climate we're in now, it's more important than ever.
And there's just so much internal politics in organizations. So like you got to understand the game you're playing and who needs to, be involved in at what stage of any of this. The last thing you want is to build out a campaign and then go to your stakeholders and them say, well, no, we don't like the tagline. We don't like, oh, well, great, I've built everything around that. Bring people in. What I like to do is design by committee early doors, give people the space to vocalize, get them on their soapboxes, hear what they've got to say, acknowledge it, but make it clear that it's not necessarily the direction of travel that you're going to go in. And then do not design by a committee, right? Yeah. So we do some early strategic pieces. We hear what people have to say, and then leave it to us, the people who know what we're doing, to actually build out.
And I think using that helps you preempt what they're going to say later on. So with a big client I worked with, I know they listened to the podcast. Let's call the woman Sally. It's not her name, but she was a senior stakeholder within their function. I sat on a call with 2 of my main contacts and we were like, right, so what's Sally going to say? What is Sally going to think about this? And we could really empathise because she'd told us everything she thought way in advance. That even if some of it wasn't perfectly in line with what she was asking for, we could say, well, actually, we heard you here. So what we've done is this. And actually, it made that final sign-off call an absolute breeze because the entire thing was built around Sally. I can't wait to get the text message when somebody realises who they are.
And Sally, you're like, who is it?
Sally is such a ridiculous name for who it was as well. But it worked so well because we knew that. And then I've carried that, and that I won't lie, that was the first time that I'd really thought of it that overtly. But I've carried that through to so many projects I've done since, and it works really well because you can preempt and you can think, okay, I know what I need to do here. I know what they're going to say. So let me think about how I'm going to say, well, actually, yes, I hear you. This is what we've done from it. A lot of the problem and the challenges people have with campaigns, especially in L&D context, is the politics. It is the red tape. It is the barriers. And that's what makes L&Ders not want to do it.
Yeah. It's the barriers and a lack of skill, I think, as well. Like, we just don't know what we don't know and we don't know where to start. We don't know what to do.
Yeah. So with that being said, as we come to the end of the podcast, I think it would be remiss of us not to mention something that you sneakily launched yesterday, Ashley. What did you do?
Sneak attack.
Sneaky. I was on annual leave. I came back like, what? She's launched it.
Yes, we have officially, I'm going to do like a little separate teaser that's just independent of this as well, but we have launched something called the Campaign in a Box. And essentially what that is an off-the-shelf, ready-to-go campaign solution. It's a 3-month campaign that's focused entirely on helping you re-engage your learners. Me and Han have done strategy, plan, reusable visual assets, pre-written emails that you can copy and paste, manager activation kits, stakeholder engagement, pitch decks, benchmarking tools, so on and so forth. The idea is that you have everything that you need to implement a campaign yourself. And the added bonus, of course, is everything is editable in template format. So obviously all the image files come in Canva. So if you need to put your brand, your typography, your colors, your images, we've selected a visual identity, a neutral visual identity for the brand. But obviously most of you will have to do at least something to make it look like your organization. Otherwise you will have unhappy brand police. We're building a whole series of these. So this is the first one. As I said, it's focused on learner re-engagement, but we have a couple of others coming in the autumn. So this is going live on mid-August once I'm back from holiday. I gotta go on holiday and drink cocktails. I do. And so, yeah, it's only just under $5,000 per box and really requires, you can launch in less than a week if you have sign off. You know, it really is, you've got everything that you need. And we've leveraged our knowledge, our expertise, you know, building 50 plus campaigns. And we understand what makes learning development campaigns successful. So yeah, award-winning marketing agency develops new product called Campaign in a Box. It does what it says on the box.
No, and I genuinely, I know it's us blowing our own trumpet, but I think it's a game changer. And we were talking earlier about like the state of the market right now and how we need to keep the lights on. Essentially, we need to keep marketing, we need to keep people aware of our learning offering, and I think this is a really great, easy solution for people to do that with our expertise, without perhaps the bigger budgets and without the time. Like you said, you can launch within a week. That's insane. Yeah, even for us.
I estimate that it saves about 20 hours or thereabouts of time if you were to do, maybe even more if you did the research and things like that. So, you know, I think the idea here is that it's not a bespoke campaign. Of course it's not. But we are using all of our research, knowledge, and expertise to build something that we genuinely believe will penetrate that noise in your organization, again, through that consistency and through that 3-month period of being visual whilst also activating managers and things like that. So, you know, they all follow the same format in terms of it's always going to be 30 assets, but you know, we've got a few other topics in the works, but if there's something you'd like to see, by all means, give us a shout. And also the first 10 boxes get 15% off. There's already a good handful that are reserved. So if you do want one, click the link in the notes. Get yourself on the waiting list by filling in the form on the site. You can also download a brochure if that's your cup of tea. And yeah, hopefully this brings marketing to a whole new group of people that perhaps couldn't afford it previously.
Yeah. And gives a little bit of steer to those that perhaps have been listening to us for a while and thinking, how do I do this by myself? Because it gives you the crux of what you need to do. You just need to personalise it. But like Ash said, I will put more information in the show notes. This is not a salesy podcast, but it would have been silly for us to talk about campaigns and not mention something that we've done to try to help the industry really get marketing into their L&D functions. So we had to mention it. But marketing campaigns are so incredibly important. We need to stop overlooking them, and we need to stop thinking that one email one time constitutes a campaign. It does not. If you've been listening to this for a long time and you still think that, I'm pleased you've not been listening to us. You've not wasted over 100 hours of your time, because if you have been listening for any length of time, you know this already. But it's just so important to keep it front of mind and keep reminding your employees, your audience, that learning's there and the benefits you can give. There's so many podcasts from this, like when we first started, talking about the WIFM, the awareness problem, all of that comes into making a really, really great campaign. But like Ash has already said, you need to do that research piece and you need to align with the business goals. And that's how you're going to create a campaign that genuinely works for your organisation.
Yeah, and just to underline that a little bit further, it's, for me, you know, the one email, one time thing, I don't know if many people think that's actually a campaign, but I'll tell you, for me, the reason we talk about campaigns is because campaigns get results for all the reasons we've just discussed around keeping front of mind, being present, signposting where to go and what to do, and answering the WIFM and all of that joyful stuff. Single instances of communications, which is what that really is, do nothing. So why are you even bothering? Because they don't do anything, because there's just nothing else behind it. There's no energy behind it. It is a single shout into the cave and echo. Avoid the void.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So,
good. Shocking that we're in agreement.
I know, and it bonkers. And also absolutely crazy that, the only marketing agency in the world dedicated to the world of L&D think that marketing campaigns for L&D are really worthwhile.
It's
more
weird
shocking
that.
than that.
Do you know what? I believe it. Even if we didn't have maths, I'd still be shouting about this,
same.
honestly.
We were both talking about marketing before maths was ever a thing. We were talking about that in separate L&D orgs, so we absolutely genuinely believe this. We've got 2 episodes left of this series. The next episode is a guest episode with Nelson from How Now. It is such a great listen. I really enjoyed editing it. It's all about impact and how we can actually measure impact in our L&D functions. And then your favourite duo, myself and Ashley, will be back to talk about how we can actually bring all of the last however many episodes together in the people impact loop to actually get you real impact within your organisations. So next week, the guest episode will be in your ear holes next Friday. I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Bye. I'm going to be drinking
guys.
cocktails. See you later.
Yeah, Ash will be more bronzed.
I will, yes.
Yeah. I won't be. I'm staying in England.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry.
You're not.
I'm going on holiday with a 1-year-old and a 4.5-year-old and a 14-year-old, so it's
I'd rather be in the UK.
Gonna be interesting.